Some similarities with broadcast TV and cable are in the upfront selling period. Like the broadcast networks, cable joins the annual ritual dance of the upfront. And also like the broadcast networks, cable networks make guarantees of audience delivery against the dollars that ad agencies expend to buy in the upfront market. So upfront is still usually going to be a pretty good deal for the advertiser in that they're buying well in advance. They're hopefully getting what would be a better rate than if you were to buy in the scatter market or the opportunistic market. But you are also locking into that contract, but you're also getting the guarantee of a certain audience level. Buyers have problems sorting out what to buy and how to keep up with the paperwork. You're talking about several different cable networks now that you're doing buys for. So trying to keep up with what's happening on USA versus what's happening on Nickelodeon versus what's happening on Fox News or CNN or whatever other networks that you're dealing with can be a bit of a challenge. So something that the ad agencies and cable television had worked on together to incorporate is an idea called electronic data interchange, or EDI. For cable, EDI allows the network to transmit contracts, orders, and invoices from its own computers to those of an ad agency. And at the same time, it allows agencies to transmit brand allocations and copy instructions to the networks. So this was kind of an innovative thing when it first came out. We don't think much of it nowadays. It's nothing to be able to log on to a web page and place an order over the internet and make changes to those orders and all that sort of thing. But the idea of having kind of this central network of where everybody's using the same tools to be able to place orders, to make changes to orders and contracts and all that sort of thing, was quite the thing when it first came out, and helped to keep things in a nice, organized sort of way, to be able to see the history of changes, to be notified when changes are made, keeping things much neater and cleaner as a whole, as opposed to trying to make constant changes through paper. It does estimate the need for, eliminates the need rather for paper documents, which can get lost, and for a buyer or seller to rekey all the information that's already been keyed in by its trading partner. So again, it's real time. It keeps up with all the changes that are being made. To put EDI into practice, agencies and cable networks worked to agree on unit serialization, in which computer systems track each commercial with its own serial number. In radio, a lot of times this is called an ISCI code. Think of it kind of like when you go to the grocery store and you're buying your groceries. Most of your grocery items are going to have a UPC code or a barcode that identifies what that product is. Similar sort of thing with unit serialization when it comes to television and cable advertising. Cable has two constituencies. The National Cable Network is involved in selling both to advertisers and to local cable systems. So the networks are, just as much as they're marketing themselves to various advertisers for sources of revenue, so they are marketing themselves to the various local cable systems to reach agreements for the cable system to carry its network over its platform. And local cable systems do pay a fee to the various cable networks for the rights to carry their network on their system. Usually it's going to be in terms of a certain monetary value per subscriber per month. And those fees can vary greatly depending on the popularity of the network. depending on the various types of programming that are there. It can be from a few cents per viewer per month to last figures I heard for ESPN, for example, it was $6 per viewer per month. So you can imagine, obviously, the more popular cable TV channels are going to command more from the local cable operators to be able to carry their content. Selling local cable. The idea of subscribers first. Cable made so much money for so many years simply by connecting subscribers to the systems that advertising revenues were insignificant by comparison, especially when you consider what the beginnings of cable were, where it was just a relay of broadcast signals to try to strengthen that signal for the benefit of those that subscribed. Cable really saw itself more as a service, as opposed to the way that it sees that broadcast TV, for example, sees itself. So by and large, local cable operators were not really all that concerned about reaching out to advertisers for revenue. Multiple systems operators, or MSOs, would connect individual systems in contiguous geographic areas to deliver more homes to advertisers in large metropolitan areas. So in the early days of cable TV, they were generally owned by mom and pop type operations. They were small businesses, and you would have a certain local cable operator serving one town or one county or several small towns. And then the next county over, you would have another cable operator that was doing the same thing for its area, and on and on and on. Well, as time went on, a lot of those local cable operators would buy each other out, and you have the larger corporations that you have now, like Spectrum and Comcast and all those guys. But even for those that are still being served by different areas, the MSOs would actually kind of string together some of the different service areas, either within their own company or sometimes even across competition, in order to be able to create larger areas of service. Systems owned by different MSOs would connect together to make buying local cable easier, and these combinations of systems would be called interconnects. So you might have an interconnect that would serve Central North Carolina, for example, even though different local areas are going to be served by a different local aspect of a cable system, or by different cable systems, but all together they may join together into this interconnect. Interconnects deliver commercials from a central point, either to individual cable systems or to all of the systems in the combination by using satellite technology or fiber optic lines. So it would be kind of like a small network, if you want to think of it that way, where the commercials would originate from one central point, and that central point would then distribute the content to each of the local areas. Some advantages of local cable. Local cable has specific advantages for advertisers, and geography would be the biggest one of those. Advertisers have the ability to buy in just a portion of a market or in multiple markets. So even within a local area, say you're a subscriber to Spectrum in Harnett County, it is possible that even though the cable system serves the entire county, that you may see different local commercials if you live in Dunn as opposed to if you live in Lillington or if you live in Anger. The cable systems have ways of being able to break out those signals by area, by zip code, to be able to more specifically target advertising to people within certain geographic boundaries. The Cable Advertising Bureau says that cable is the most affordable television advertising vehicle for all types and sizes of advertisers. And part of that is because of the way that cable is able to segment itself out on a much small area, kind of a micro level, or be able to build up to a more macro level to serve a certain county or multiple counties in a region. Cable was traditionally considered a frequency medium because of its lower costs, but with the growth of national cable audiences, I should say, local cable got the benefit, and the medium proved to be capable of reach as well as frequency. So it still has that reputation of the lower costs and being able to buy more advertising time with the dollars that you have. But it has definitely proven itself to be much more effective than it was previously. On direct selling, Robert Imbriel says this: having your ad on television means that you are a healthy business to most viewers. When your ad appears on television time and time again, your prospects think that you are doing so very well that you can afford to drop millions on television ads, and everybody wants to do business with a winning company. So the idea here is that it is generally accepted that television advertising is not all that cheap between the cost of creative and the cost of advertising time itself. Plus the fact that most people watch television in one way or another. People recognize that just about everybody is watching in one way or another. So they can imagine that the costs of doing those sorts of things would be rather pricey. Therefore, if you're on television, it's got that sort of reputation to it that a person that is advertising on TV is doing pretty well for himself or herself. And we do tend to be attracted to those that are successful, that it's a sense that they know what they're doing, that they're competent at the particular business that they're in, and it lends itself to people being attracted to them and wanting to patronize their business. Local news now. Local programming channels are great unifiers of disparate systems. The book talks about a couple of different examples of local cable news channel outlets, and some of them are on a regional level and some of them are on a more hyper-local level. The New York City market is a great example of some of the hyper-local news outlets that are out there, serving even just sections of the city of New York. And then you have more regional ones, like in New England. There's a channel called New England Cable News that serves the entire 6-state region of New England. Regional sports channels is also going to be a good example of the way that this works as well. Promotions. MSOs and Interconnects develop local promotions to benefit advertisers and their communities, very much in the same way that the other types of media do. One advantage that cable has is that it can get permission from some of the various national networks to be able to tie in local advertisers for various types of promotions, and make it beneficial for both the advertiser and for the local cable operator. Audience measurement. Most MSOs and Interconnects in the top 50 markets subscribe to Nielsen. Many also use Cable Scan, which marries qualitative data with quantitative information about buying habits and lifestyles. And I think I said those backwards. It marries quantitative data with the qualitative information about buying habits and lifestyles. So, I got to learn how to read, folks. But basically, the idea here is that cable television, in addition to using the same tools that broadcast television uses, also has its own ways of being able to do audience measurement and to be able to track various types of psychographics and audience behaviors and things like that. Ronald Katz developed a quiz that helps a prospect evaluate an existing media program, and he calls it the Advertiser Quiz. The first section requires a true or false response to each of these statements here that come from your textbook. I am basically satisfied with my advertising and with my media plan. It appears to showcase my product or service well. Research shows that it is conveying to my customers pretty much what I want to tell them. The advertising seems to be sufficient, and I believe that the advertising is doing an effective job. So as the advertiser goes through those 5 questions, basically saying whether he or she agrees or disagrees with that statement. And then we get to this next item here, basically taking a look at the current situation and trying to see what would make it better. Basically, finishing the statement, I only wish that this was going on, or that this was available, or that this certain result would happen. The result of that question is going to be the basis for developing a campaign for that advertiser, really in any medium, but especially as we're talking about cable advertising, it's a good tactic to help an advertiser be able to see what it is that they are looking to do, how to reach their goals, how to solve their problem, and to be able to incorporate a cable advertising buy to help them to be able to do that. Examined in the content of all media, cable offers a variety of highly specialized programming options that allow advertisers to zero in on highly targeted audiences that would be difficult to reach otherwise. Now, we are seeing that new media is doing a very good job of this as well and has that capability. But if we're talking about more traditional media, cable does have an advantage over broadcast TV in the niched audience aspect. And cable television has an advantage over radio in that it can include the moving picture aspect to the advertising. Katz also says that cable offers the visualization of television, the targeted formats and specialization of magazines, the low unit costs and frequency of radio, and the local interests and appeal of newspapers. So highlighting some various benefits that we tend to associate with different types of media and showing how they all come together in local cable advertising. Finally, one thing to keep in mind if you are a seller of cable advertising is that not only are you going to find yourself selling the advertising itself, but you're also going to find yourself talking about the technical upgrades, both in your system and in cable on a national level. It's part of the benefit package that cable brings to the community. So you may find yourself talking about some of the ways of delivering higher quality of content, clearer pictures, more instantaneous delivery, some of the various on-demand options that cable offers, and different types of interactive content that cable can now provide, where many cable systems that have much higher tech remote controls, for example, you could have your advertising being shown on a particular cable channel, and then a pop-up can come up to say, use your remote to go find out more about this or to place an order or something like that. There have been those different innovations that have come through on cable television in the past 20 years and things that we don't necessarily think about with sitting there watching what we would think of as traditional television on your TV is becoming much more interactive, much more on demand, much more specialized and catered to the viewer, that it makes things in terms of that interactivity more attractive to the viewer and can potentially be more attractive to the advertiser as well in terms of the advertiser's reach and influence on the viewer. So that's going to do it for the notes for Chapter 7. Make sure you take a look at the study questions and be ready to discuss the items in the chapter. Bring with you questions, comments, and all that sort of thing when we get together.